share to the cloud. Cool, okay. Oops. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first backend lecture. So you can see, like, we have our backend plan now, and you will be learning, like, so for the first week, this week and the next lesson, you will be learning Node.js and also Flask. So Node.js is kind of like a backend framework that's using JavaScript, and Flask is a backend framework that's using Python. So yeah, actually, let me close my WeChat. Okay. And then we were going to take a quick look at Django, and then go to some clouds, and finally, we'll be working with databases, and also take a look at security. So yeah, this is essentially like a very rough course plan, the roadmap for our courses. And today, the first course, we're going to take a look at Node.js. And so I'm pretty sure that you are definitely very familiar with JavaScript right now. And you may notice we can actually only run JavaScript in our browser using the script tag. And this is something that we use to all the time, like for JavaScript. However, if we want to run JavaScript in our local machine, so like if there's like a Python script, you can just run it like using Python followed by the script name, right? However, in terms of JavaScript, you cannot really do that with the browser. And that's where Node comes into play. So Node is kind of like a JavaScript runtime engine. And it's built on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine. It's a pretty powerful engine. And essentially, like this engine allows you to run JavaScript even without a browser. And this means that you can actually do a lot more with JavaScript. So essentially, like before the invention of Node, you can only like the most common uses, or the only use case for JavaScript is to use it to manipulate DOM, for example. However, right now you can actually build an entire server. Also, like build connection between server and databases using entirely JavaScript. And JavaScript can manage local files. It can you can use it to connect and set up server and do much more cool stuff. So yeah, we are going to cover Node. And to understand Node, there's a very important thing that's like working behind Node and managing all the Node packages. And if you have worked with Python for some while, you'll know that there's a Python package manager called pip. And pip is a very important Python package manager, and you can download like package through pip very easily. You just do like pip install numpy, for example, and pip will automatically download numpy for you and install it on your local machine. NPM is essentially the same thing, but it's for JavaScript. So it's called it's called NPM. Yeah, essentially it's their website. Usually you can search NPM package. For example, here, there's a markdown to JSX package. And if you search it, you can see this is essentially like an overview of a package from an NPM. So essentially, this shows that it's from NPM. And here is the name of the package. And how to install it is you just use the install command, which is npm I stands for install. You can also do npm install. npm I markdown to JSX. And this is essentially like how you will install all the npm packages. It's very, very similar to how Python works. So yeah, this is for npm. Okay, and so before we get started for the live coding and learn more about Node, we need to download Node first. So everyone, make sure you go to this Node.js website and download the Node.js runtime engine according to like your computing platform. So yeah, I already have it on my computer. So yeah. And how do you like, so after you download it, let's see. You can just download like the 12.19.01 Because like this is the most stable view as we can tell. Probably cancel the 15.0.1. Once you download it, you should be able to like see to like determine have you downloaded it correctly. So the way to ensure that you have downloaded it correctly is just use node space -v, and it will print out the corresponding node version that you got. Yeah. If there's like nothing showing up, you probably like install it wrong. You can install it like again. So yeah, make sure you got the Node.js installed. Cool. Okay. And after you have installed Node.js, it's time to get started. And we can first create a Node intro folder. So let's do that. For people who don't know, mkdir is just short for make directory. It essentially like makes a folder. So you can see here's a Node intro folder in the live demo folder. And then you do cd.node intro. CD is essentially like change directory. It will allow you to move inside the node intro. This is not really web development right now, but yeah, it's just good to know. And you can initialize the npm directory using the npm init-y. And essentially, like, why do we need to create an npm npm directory? So essentially, like, the npm package manager treats every folder as kind of like a npm package. And to use other like npm package, you need to like create a package like yourself. So essentially, like by running npm init, if you run it without the -y, you will like not default anything. So essentially, like -y is essentially saying that we will have everything as the default. But here I will work through everything. So as you can see, like npm init under the hood is just creating a package, npm package. You can specify the version, the description, or just skip all that. How to skip it? You just press enter. Yeah, the entry point, you can just skip it, blah, blah, blah. Yes. Cool. If you run it with like npm init-y, it's essentially the same thing. And after you run it, you should be able to see a package.json created inside your like folder. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, so this is a package.json file. This you can understand this file as kind of like the configuration of Node.js. Essentially, you see it includes the name, the version, the description, and there's also some scripts, but we won't actually use it. There's an author field. You can change it to your name. For example, Alex Wu, which is my name. When you install like more dependency to this npm package, to this npm packages, like to your own package, there will be a dependencies attribute created here. Yeah, we'll see in a second how this file will change. So yeah. Now let's try to create a hello world, but the hello world is in a node. So how do we do that? First of all, you create a file. You name it hello world.js. Cool, and you get the hello world.js. And to print out things, it's the same as the as you would print out things in the browser. So you can use console.log hello world. And then save it. And how to run a Node.js file? Essentially, you just use node followed by hello world followed by the file name. And once you press enter, you will see the hello world printing here on the screen. I mean on the console. Yeah, cool. Any question up to that point? It can be like questions related to setup. I hope like people are doing this, like following along. Yeah.
Where should we put like, or when do we make one of, like, is this just a one-time thing that we make it in our home directory, or do we make it in every project that we do?
Oh yeah, good question. So essentially, like, so for the NPM init, yes, you need to make it for every project you want to do. So essentially, like, if you have another package, like if you want to create another package, say, I don't know, goodbye world, then you need to npm init again in another directory and then like create, say like end world package. However, there can be like multiple files within one packages, and you can like run other files as well. So let's see, second.js console.log, second, and you can still run second.js. So essentially, like you can put multiple JS files in one npm folder, in one npm packages. But yeah, if you want to create different packages, you need to run npm init again. Yeah, hope that answered your question. Any other questions? Cool, okay. So let's continue. Yeah, so right now we have, oh wait, oh no. Yeah, okay. So right now we have our like first hello world file, which is pretty good. Let's see. JS in browser versus Node.js. As you can see, like Node.js is actually, though they use a similar like Chrome VA engine, however, they behave fundamentally different when you're using like JavaScript in Node in your local machine versus JavaScript in browser. So one very apparent difference is the lack of document object. So if you create, when you are inside a browser, and let's just Google, oh shoot, Google.com. When you're inside a browser, and there is this document object, document, that you can refer to. However, when you're inside a Node JS environment, there does not exist a document object. We can try to print this out and see what happens. Yes, you can see document here is not defined. So essentially, like since we do not have a browser window like this, there is like no need to have a document object. So this is like one big difference. And also, since Node is a server-side language, what does server-side language mean? It's essentially like you can use it to create a server and run it on a local machine. You can interact with local file system very easily. So when you're on the browser, you can hardly interact with the local file system. The only way, the only way that you can interact with the local file system is through the local storage. However, like this is like kind of like the you can understand it as the cookie of the website. It's very similar to this. It's kind of like cache for browser. It's not the real local file system. However, for Node.js, you can really like interact with the local file system, meaning you can download things, you can alter things, you can read things from the local files. Yeah, it also provides, Node.js also provides you a way to set up a server, and these things you can't really do in a JavaScript in browser. So yeah, these are the like some of the main differences between JavaScript in browser and JavaScript in Node. Cool. And so let's start with building a web server, a very simple web server using Node and Express. So what's Express? Express is essentially a package, an NPM package that can be used to set up a web server in a very easy and fast way. Let's try to explore it. Oh, actually, let's get rid of the console.log document first. And let's try to install it. How to install things? You do npm install and npm I, and then express. Just make sure. Yeah. Anyway, install it for you. Cool. And after installing Express, if you look at the package.json file, you can see that the dependencies here, like there's a new dependencies attribute that's being added. And this is essentially like a place that you npm will keep track of all the packages that like your own package is using. And here you see a node modules. Node modules is essentially like all the dependencies that hello world.js that this package is using. So essentially like you see, however, you see like there's like much more to only Express, right? We only download Express, but however, why there are like so many of them? And this is because NPM package is often very interconnected. So what does that mean is that when you download one package, oftentimes it needs like quite a lot of other packages in order for it to work. So yeah, so this is kind of like a, you can see it as a good side or bad side of an NPM, of using like NPM to manage packages. But yeah, so this is the, also like one thing, why do we, another very good thing for us to use NPM is that you can actually, when you are like sending someone else's your package, you can delete your node modules. And why is that? Because we have already tracked all the dependencies in this like configuration file package.json. And when others receive your package, NPM will just like download all the dependencies, all the relevant dependencies according to this package.json file. So essentially, like it first of all, it decreases the package size. Yeah, I mean that's probably the only use to it, but it's very useful because like no module is often huge, and we don't really want that. There's also a package log.json. It essentially like keep tracks of, besides Express, it also keep track of like all the other packages that will be introduced in the node modules file, essentially like all the dependencies of the Express modules. So yeah, oftentimes you only need to look at package.json. This is like one of the most important things for Node. Cool. Are there any questions up till this point? Oh, there's something in the chat. Oh, so it's called, oh yeah. It's very similar to requirements.txt. Yeah, if you are familiar with pip, you can, for pip, you can like freeze your requirement. You can do like pip freeze, something like that. And then you can freeze all the requirements to a txt file, for example. And package.json functions really similar to pip. And you actually don't need to like freeze it. Package.json do it automatically for you. So yeah, that's kind of like one difference between pip and npm. So yeah, definitely it's very similar to requirements.txt. Cool. Any other questions? Wait, why is there so many YouTube notifications? Cool, okay. Let's move on. So now let's try to use Express. Yeah, now you can see like dependencies, okay. And now let's just copy and paste it here. And then let's explain through this line by line. And this is essentially like how, and right now we'll basically like try to use a the Express package to set up Express server. And first of all, we need to import the Express package. So how do we import a package? We use the require keyword to import a package. So essentially, you can first define a variable called Express, and then you require the package. The name of the package that we just downloaded is called Express, as you can see here. So you just require and followed by the name of the package. You can just this is a way of how like Node imports things. And to create a Express server, we first of all need an Express app. So let's do this. This is kind of like, there's like no reason for it. It's just the API for Express. And by creating an app, like you can access all the very solid and legit methods that Express have already written for us. So essentially, like you can see here, there's an app.get, there's an app.listen. These are all like the existing the methods that's in Express that's being packaged into the app variable, and you can like use all the methods from the Express package through this way. So yeah, and now let's first of all let's define a port number. So what does port number do? Essentially, like so you are running a web server on your local machine. Your local machines have many ports, and we need to specify one port to allow the web server to run on it. And once the web server like gets started on this particular port, this port will be occupied, and other like processes cannot take this port. So yeah, this is like a very quick overview of the web server. We'll be like diving into web server in detail later, but yeah, right now it's just like a get to know you kind of tutorial. So we can, after we have the port, let's actually first do the listen. So app.listen port, and then the arrow function. So what does this do? Essentially, what this is trying to do is it will set up a server that's listening on the port that we are trying to give. And the second argument that's passing to the listening function is just a callback function. And callback function is a very common pattern within Node.js and also JavaScript in general. Essentially, this is saying that after you run app.listen port, you should run this. And this is essentially like a way for to give us a way to check whether the port is actually running or not. So we can do console.log example app listening. Oh geez, let's just copy and paste. Yeah, let's just console.log this. And this is essentially a very cool thing about JavaScript is that you can use quasi quasi-cool. And by using the $sign, you can essentially like directly format port into the string. And once it print it out, it will be like http://localhost 3000. So yeah, localhost here, localhost essentially means your local machine, like your PC, and the port is 3000. And by accessing this website, will like access to our web server. So let's see. It's clear. And how to run the Node file is just node hello world.js. And you run it. Oh wait. Oh yeah. The quasi-code is not closing. It's fine. Okay, we can just do it the ugly way. Cool, let's try that again. Okay, there's some weird bracket. Start up the bracket. Cool. No, I forgot to save it. Okay, so you can see right now, example app is listening at localhost 3000. Cool. And when we try to visit, we can try to visit this website. Let's see what do we get. Yeah, essentially we get nothing. And why do actually like why do if your website is white, it's perfectly normal because like I have this dark theme enable. Yeah, let me disable this. Yeah, so this is what you will get. Essentially, like we need to have a default get method for our web server to be running like normally. And let's do app.get. And what does app.get mean? It essentially is saying that when a user log on to our web server and visits the root URL of our server, of our website. So essentially you can think of this URL as like google.com. And then, so this is a root URL. Inside it can be like google.com/career/jobs/ I don't know. Yeah, so this will be the root. And this would be like a kind of like a subdomain of the website. So yeah. And app.get, if you only do like a backslash like that here, is essentially saying that when a user visits the root website, you are like responding a certain way. And if you do like, if you want to specify subdomain, you can do like career, and that's how you essentially like do subdomain. So yeah, but right now we'll just do the root domain. The app.get takes 2 arguments. The first is the URL, and second is a function. And the function here is an arrow function, as you can see, and it has 2 arguments. One's request, one's response. So the request is essentially like when user enters a web server or any website, it will first of all send a HTTP request to this website, and then we'll give it a response. And for now, we can ignore request for now, and we will just use response. And response is an object, and you can use response to send stuff. For example, if we send hello world, and we run again, oh, we actually need to restart the server. Okay. And if we run it again, you can see the hello world printing in the root, in your root URL, which is the localhost 3000. And if you try to visit, like say jobs, it will still say cannot get jobs. And that's why is that? Because we haven't implemented the endpoint for jobs yet. Oops. Yeah, so right now we have our first API endpoint. And so what's API endpoint? Essentially, this is very similar to an API endpoint. It's essentially saying that when users requesting some specific URL, the thing that it returns, and the function that handles this request is called an API endpoint. Cool. Any questions so far? Oh wait, someone just joined.
Oh wait, what happened to the thing that was console.logged? Like where is that?
Oh, you mean here? Yeah, it's printed here in the command line.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. So essentially, like this will become like the console for Node.
And even when it can't get that, even when it was saying like cannot get, it was still logging that.
Oh yeah, true. So actually, like I think it will take something along the lines of like error and like success or something like that. And if you want to print out error, you can probably like just print it out. Yeah, I'm not sure on that, but yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Actually, I think how will. Okay, so the person that enters a little bit late, do you mind just like PM me later? Because like I need to take attendance of all of you. Yeah. And I don't really want to take attendance now. So cool. Okay. So no, oh wait. how would you link HTML to this web server? Oh yeah, good question. So we'll be covering this in much more detail later. Yeah, there will be like a separate like Node courses, I believe. Let's see. Let me double check. Oh wait, there isn't. Okay. Yeah, so essentially like how you would so very good question. We probably need to update our course plan a little bit. Okay, so this will probably like be a very important thing to do. Essentially how you would return HTML is essentially like you can do it the easy way as a straightforward way. The straightforward way would be just coding a HTML tag directly here. So let's say hello world. Oh yeah. To run it again and refresh, as you can see, like the hello world appears. And I would say like, so usually the Node.js is just for backend. And when you are using the front end, you will probably use some, if you're trying to use a modern tool, you are used to React. And then instead of like sending HTML tags here, the front end will be in charge of all the front end code. And the front end will actually send out requests to the backend server. And the server will, instead of like providing a string or H1 tag, it will be providing data. And the data will oftentimes be in JSON format. And this is essentially like how we build modern web applications. So yeah, there's like a very clear separation between the backend and the front end. And that's kind of like why we haven't teach how do you like handle large HTML files when you're using Node. It's because that the HTML file and the Node.js server is actually separated into two things. So yeah, I think we can. Yeah, no problem. So I think we can do like one lecture talking about. I think probably it's in the front part. Yeah, I think we can do a lecture about like how the front end can interact with the web server. I think that will be like pretty helpful in terms of like how you understand this web server and yeah, the whole communication thing. So yeah, essentially in brief, the web server oftentimes is just used to handle data instead of like handle HTML files. So yeah, but if you want to handle HTML files, it's totally fine. You can use this, and there's definitely like some other ways to just like send an HTML file. I believe you can just like create an HTML file and like send it through the Express framework. It does definitely has to be a way, but like personally, I don't use it that way, so I'm not that sure about like how do we do. So yeah, cool. So this is for the. So this is for the very basic Hello World server. Let's see. So we covered this, we covered this. Okay, and now let's try to add more routes. Before we add any route, let's look at this link here. And this link, as you can see, like when you enter this link, it returns a bunch of data, right? Actually, let's try it. Let's see if oh, NASA update their API. Nice. We can change it back to the original API endpoint. Cool. So essentially, where does this come from? It's coming from NASA API. It's coming from NASA Open API. And essentially, like NASA provides a way for developers and also for researchers to access their data very easily. And this is the open API project that NASA's trying to do. And we like most of the APIs are for free. And we are using this function, the astronomy picture of the day. Essentially, like every day, NASA will update one astronomical image, astronomical picture. As you can see here, it's pretty pretty. You can send HTTP requests to the NASA server, and the NASA server will then like return the corresponding data. How do we actually send a HTTP request? And this is by essentially visiting this URL. And you can find this URL in the Notion page. We can actually like try to decode this URL a bit. Okay. Yeah, so you can see it's divided into like several parts. So the most important part here is like API key. And we are using the demo key here. And if you want, you can also create like your own key here by just like entering your name, your last name, your email, and it will create an API key of your own. After you create an API key of your own, you can access to like much more requests. So yeah, you can also use the demo key. It's fine. We'll use the demo key for now because like I don't want to show my API key. Like yeah, cool. So that's for the NASA Open APIs. As we can see, if we visit our browser, we can see we get a lot of data. There's the date data. There's an explanation. There's the HD URL, which like is the image in HD. And there's a normal URL, which is like the image in normal resolution. So yeah, and there's also like a bunch of other meta tags. So cool. And what are we trying to do? Is that we are trying to access the NASA this API, and then get the corresponding, and then redirect all the data to the NASA subdomain that we're using in our website. So essentially, when people visit NASA, right now it says cannot get NASA, but after we build the API endpoint, it should be returning the same thing shown here. So that's what we are trying to do. Let's get started by just implement a NASA endpoint. So let's do that. So NASA request response. Also could need that. Oh wait. Rest of send. Let's actually just send a NASA here, just to make sure that we have done the correct. We can like connect to the NASA endpoint. Let's refresh the server, and cool, you can see the NASA here on the website. So right now we have our NASA endpoint, and now we need to like get access to this API. And how do we do that? We need to use another package, and this is a very, very important package in web or in like Node.js. It's like since like it's essentially a way for you to send HTTP requests to other servers. It allows you to essentially like fetch very important data from other servers, like a secure way. So yeah, and it has already like handle all the lower level things for you. You can essentially like trust every method within it. So let's go ahead and install it. It's called Axios. So npm install Axio. Huh. Okay, let's double check Axio. Axios documentation. Oh, it's probably Axios. Shoot, yeah, it's Axios. Sorry about that. Add an S to it. Add an S. Okay. Yeah, the package name is actually Axios. Cool. Now let's try the store again. Cool. Now we get the Axios. Let's clear it. And now we can require it using the same way. So let's do that. Actually, you can take a look at package.json. You can see Axios here is showing up here. And here, the 0.200 is just the version number. And the up arrow here, the up arrow here is essentially like trying to say that you can install a Axios package of version 0.20.0 or something higher. So yeah. And right now, after we have our Axios, we can try and use this to get our to send the HTTP request. So how do we send the HTTP request? It's through this line, axios.get, followed by the URL that we are trying to use. Axios essentially like .get is send the HTTP GET request. We'll be covering like GET request, POST request later in the course. But yeah, essentially like since if you take a look at the API, OpenAPI's website, here it's saying GET this, which means that we need to send a GET request. And that's why we use the GET method. Axios also have the POST method available and also like delete method. There's like a bunch of like HTTP method. We're covering this in the second lecture, so no worries. And yeah, so after we run this, we'll get a response. And how do we handle HTTP response? Is by using this, the .then method and also the .catch method. So why do we use .then method, the .catch method instead of like just using, say like results and then like process the result later? Is because the reason we are not using this, like this very synchronous way of writing code, is that axios.get is actually an asynchronous operation, which means that it takes time for Axios to send a GET request to NASA server and wait till NASA server get back to us. And when we are dealing with asynchronous operations, wait, there are so many questions in chat. How would you, it's Axios. Yeah, it's Axios. Forgot to ask. Best, oh yeah, cool. Okay, yeah. And wait, where am I? Okay, yeah, so essentially like, instead of just treating it as a normal variable, we treat it using the asynchronous code. And how do you handle it? Is by using the .then method. And the .then method is actually on a, actually what Axios return is actually a promise. And we can use the .then method to resolve this promise. So essentially it's saying that if there's no error happening, like throughout this operation, we'll then run this .then method. And the .then method takes in a parameter, which is a function. And we create an arrow function here. It's essentially like, so if the response goes through, we'll run this function. And the .catch method is very similar to .then method. The only thing that's different is it's like when the response is not passing through, say if there's an error on the NASA side or there's an error on our side, you will catches this error and then you will like do something about it in the function down below. So yeah. And now let's look at the function that we are actually writing in the .then and the .catch method. So in the .then method, the function takes in a parameter and the parameter is a response. And this response is essentially this thing that we get from the NASA server. So after we send a request, if everything works normally, we'll get a response object. And here, the response object has like, wait, why is it .data? Actually, let's just run it and see what we have. Yeah, okay, cool. So essentially, I think this is essentially like how NASA structured their response is by following a dot data here. I probably need to double check on that. Why is it dot data? I will get back to you, I think, in the announcement or in the like education backend channel. So yeah, sorry about that. But I think I'm pretty sure it's like how NASA structure their response. But yeah, I need to double check that. So essentially, like after we get the response object, and we can access response object, the response.data. Actually, there's something in chat. Is a JSON data supposed to be formatted on the page, or oh yeah, I was using some plugin called like JSON formatter. Yeah, it's here, and it feels like yeah, it's a pretty neat plugin for Chrome. It's essentially it will format all the JSON response, and if you don't use it, you will probably like you will probably see just like very plain text formatting. So yeah. Yeah, highly recommend this. This is like super cool. It's called JSON formatter. So yeah. Yeah, cool. And this is essentially like how we access the data. And if we want to access like specific properties within this data, we can do so as well. So say if we want to get only the date. So let's do date. Let's run it again. Let's hit refresh. As you can see, like it only prints out the date. So essentially like this is how we can deal with the data. And like this is just like a very, very simple demonstration of how you what you can do with the data. You can definitely do a lot more than that. For example, you can like run some like computational. You can run some computation after you receive the data. For example, you can like increment the date or like format the date in some specific way and then return it. You can do a lot with just like one API endpoint. So yeah, and this is for our NASA API endpoint. Are there any questions? Cool. So let's move on. So this is essentially like the very basic of an Express server. And we will be, after we cover the second lecture, the REST API and the HTTP methods, you'll be like much more familiar with how the app.get, and there will also be like app.post. You can see like after you hit dot, there's like a bunch of different methods that you can use here. And these are all like HTTP methods. So yeah, cool. So now let's move on to another topic. Oh wait. So we covered send request, receive request. Now let's move on to the node and file system. Just like what I have mentioned, Node.js is very powerful as it can interact with the local file system. So let's try to do that. Actually, let's try to build on top of the web server that we already have. And say we want to build an API where the user can input the name and the type of a file, and the server can create it on your local machine. So if we visit like something along the lines of that, so as you can see, like create name equals resume, type equals text. Say if we visit this link, and you will then create the corresponding file that we want, which is resume.txt. And this is what essentially like we are trying to do. And how to do it? How to do this? So first of all, we actually need to parse this URL. As you can see, like here's name equals resume, type equals text. There's no very easy direct way to parse it without using a package. So let's install this body parser package. Actually, I believe like if you have installed Express, it comes with Express. Yeah, right now it's like it comes with Express, so you actually don't need to install it again, which is pretty neat. That's required. Copy and paste it. So we require it in essentially the same way. And how do we use it? And we use it actually in a very cool way. Let's see. So after we create this app by using Express, the app can actually take in other kinds of plugins. And these plugins are created by the Express communities. And yeah, essentially like it can help you do a lot of things on top of Express. So say if we want to use this body parser, we just parse the body parser in the app.use method, and then you can essentially like directly parse it. And so here you can see like we have used two methods. One is called the URL encoded, and one is called .json. And the URL encoded allows us to parse the parameters of the name and the type. So essentially like name equals resume and type equals text. You can parse it to name like as like name and value property instead of like just a plain string. Yeah, and we also use the .json body parser method. And what .json is trying to do is that after you parse it, you'll become an object. And when you, it will become like a JSON object. And after you run the .json method, it will convert the JSON object to a normal JavaScript object that you can access normally. And what's the difference between a JSON object and a JavaScript object? It's just like a JSON object is oftentimes everything is surrounded in strings. And when you convert it into a normal JavaScript object, everything will not surrounded with string. So yeah, probably should call it yeah. So this is what the .json is trying to do. And one good thing about using this instead of like doing all the parsing within the API endpoint is that by using the body parser plugin, it will be applied to every endpoint automatically. So you don't need to like write code every time. So yeah, there are a lot of like other Express plugins that you can find, which is pretty cool. Yeah, definitely recommend you to like look it out. Cool. Now let's build an endpoint. So yeah, let's build an endpoint called create. Actually, let's just write it here. Cool. So once we use the body parser methods, how do we actually get the name and the type from the URL? We can access the name and the type by accessing the request object. And then we can access this through request.query. What does request.query mean? It's essentially like everything after this question mark, you'll be part of like request.query. And then by using like request.query.name, you can access the name property. And by using the request.query.type, you can access a type property. Actually, let's print both out. Let's console.log name. And console.log type. Let's just let's just send some like dummy stuff to make sure like it's not showing the error. Let's see. Let's restart the server over. Missing bracket after the argument list. Oh yeah. It's probably me just deleting something. Yeah, cool. Let's do that again. And if we hit refresh, you can see the create is showing up here. If we look at the console, it's printing out resume and the txt. So this is essentially like how do we access the request query? Yeah, and this is essentially like the most common way that people will create a query. For example, let's try to find some example. So when you are Googling some stuff, so GitHub, random stuff, you can see here, the Google query is actually a question mark followed by a Q equals GitHub plus ASDS, a bunch of other data. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that this is the most common way of people like accessing the request query of like accessing users' requests. So yeah, and this is very powerful if you use it like correctly. So, yeah. Before we go into the file system, any questions for body parser or the requests that we're handling?
Yeah, Alex, I had a question. So if we look at let name is equals to request.query.name, what we are saying is that after /create, if we have a question mark and then we put the field name equals to, then whatever we type in becomes the name of the file or name of the thing.
Yeah, so essentially like are you trying to ask like the goal of this endpoint? Like the goal of this endpoint is just to create a resume.txt file in our local server, but we haven't completed it. If you're asking how do the body parser parse it, or how do we like formulate the URL, it's essentially like you put name and value pair, like name equals value, and then separate it by an end. Yeah.
All right, thanks,
Does that
Alex.
answer your, okay, cool. Any other questions? Cool. Okay, so let's yeah, okay, so let's do the file system. Yeah, how do we deal with the file system? Essentially, Node.js actually provides something that's like built in, which is pretty neat. You don't really need to like install any packages. And the thing that we're using is called the FS. Let's see. Actually, let's just copy and paste it here, because it's just easier. Okay. And let's first comment this out. Essentially, like the file name, this line is just creating a file name. So right now we already have the resume and the txt. For the file name, it would just be like resume.txt. It should be pretty straightforward. And then how do we actually append the file? How do we add the file to the local file system? We first of all use the fs object. This is kind of like the document object, but it's like in the Node.js. It's accessing the file system that our local computer have. And there's a method called append file. And append file takes in 3 arguments. The first argument is essentially the name of the file. The second argument is the content of the file. You can put like anything here. I just put something empty because like we just need an empty file. And the third argument is essentially the callback function. And the callback function is actually from here to here. And the callback function will run after you append the file. And if there's some error, it will catch the error and then send the error. And if there's like no error, if the error is undefined, then we will send this message to the website. And the message that we are sending is a message file created, meaning that we have successfully created our file. and also the name and the type of the file. And let's see. Let's rerun the hello world. If we hit refresh, oops. Okay, we probably need to import it. Let's just require it. Yeah. Actually, let's double check. File system node. Let's see whether there's any like example. This example. Oh, cool. Yeah, actually, we actually need to import it. Sorry about that. Yeah. So remember to add the constant fs equals required fs file line in front of it. Let me just add it real quick. Cool. Now let's run it again. It should be working. Yeah, cool. If we visit the endpoint, you should able to see like the message created here. We also can check whether the file is created or not. As you can see here, the resume.txt is created within our like the server. Apparently it's empty because like we haven't put anything in it. But essentially like we have achieved our goal, which is like create a resume.txt file. You can also change it to some other stuff. For example, let's do resume should actually be a PDF, right? Instead of like a TXT. So let's do resume.pdf. Where's my? You can see now, a resume.pdf is created. And why it cannot be open? Because like there's not any data in it, and the PDF format should be like there should be some content in it instead of like an empty string. So yeah. But anyway, we have successfully created a resume.pdf file on the local system. So yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Or any questions for the file system?
So just to like kind of understand the way this works, yeah. I mean, I know right now it's on localhost, but say we had like connected this to like a website that anyone else could like access, and yeah, if I had run this Express app on my computer, and someone else then went to the website and they went to like the subdomain create and gave in a name and type, would it create? It would still create the file on my local system, right? Or like wherever the Express server is actually running, not on like the client who's accessing it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Definitely. So essentially, like the FS object here is only referencing your own local file system. So yeah, you will only create a file inside the server folder that you are like running the server in.
Got it. Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? Also, if you have like any other questions like not related to this, it's completely fine. Just like I think we've covered everything. Yeah, this should just be a very straightforward introduction of Node and Express. It shouldn't be like too stress of a course. Yeah. Any other questions?
So maybe we could just quickly review the reason why we were using like body parser. So body parser is to, yeah, could you just quickly run through that part?
Yeah, so essentially like body parser is divided into two parts. And okay, so like without using the body parser, we cannot like get the request.query.name. Actually, we can try this out. I don't know whether like Express will handle this like on itself. You can try this out. So what I've done is like I comment these two lines out. Now let's see what will happen. And we run this. So instead of creating a PDF, let's stick with TXT. Let's change the name to like CV. Oh, I think you will actually handle it. Let's see whether it's created. Oh, cool. So essentially, like, okay. So I think Express will actually call the body parser like on itself. So yeah, I'm probably like I was probably thinking about like the older version of Express. Essentially, like what the body parser is doing, like for Express under the hood, is first of all, it will try. It will try to like get the name equals CV and type equals test from a string into a JSON object. So this step will convert this into like a JSON object, which is like name, CV, type, txt. And after this step here, in the second step, using body parser.json, it will change it like this. It will change it to, essentially like get rid of the string outside and make it like a normal JavaScript object. And you can access like all the attribute, just like very similar to a normal JavaScript object. So yeah. Actually, since I just discovered like you can actually comment it out without using a body parser. I believe like Express already like handle body parser like on itself. So like there's already, yeah, no worries. Yeah, there's like already this code running in the like under the hood. So yeah, that's pretty good to know. I'll definitely like include this in the Notion page later. So yeah. Any other questions? Actually, I will stop sharing.